What's up guys, viperfpv here, and today we're going to be setting up the RPM filter in Betaflight 4.1. Now if you're initially looking to set up Betaflight 4.1, how to flash it and how to configure some of the just base settings, go ahead and check out my video down in the video description on how to set everything up, and then come back to this video and we'll go ahead and help you along the way with the RPM filter. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what the RPM filtering is. It's pretty much like a notch filter on each individual motor that targets the individual motor's noise and helps the filtering of the gyro and everything else, so you don't have to have such broad filtering with the dynamic notch filter. Now I'm going to be flashing this with BHeli-32 ESCs. There is a way to go ahead and flash this with BHeli-S ESCs. It's actually a separate website you actually have to go to, and I'll leave a link to that down in the video description down below as well. The only thing I do not like about it is that it does cost money to flash your ESCs with BHeli-S, which I don't really understand that, but yeah, so that's what that is. But let's go ahead and get on the computer and show you guys how to set up the RPM filtering. All right, so we're on the computer. I have the Betaflight configurator, the newest one, up, along with BHeli-32, since I am using this on BHeli-32 ESCs. Now real briefly, if you have BHeli-S, we'll just go ahead and just drag this real quick over here. If you have BHeli-S ESCs, this will be where you need to go ahead and flash that at. And as you can see, if you want the firmware for one ESC, it's $2.37, and if you want it for 20 ESCs, it's $23.79 plus $20 in tax, which I believe this kind of upsets me. I mean, it really does, honestly. But I'll leave a link this down in the video description down below. If you have BHeli-S ESCs and you're interested in using the RPM filter, go ahead and check this out, and it's up to you if you want to purchase this or not. But back to BHeli-32, let me go ahead and go over that, click that out of there. You want to come over to the GitHub and make sure first, if you don't have BHeli-32 configure, you can go ahead and download it right here. I'll leave a link to this down in the video description down below. And what we want to go ahead and do is we want to go on BHeli-32 and we want to connect our flight controller up, and then we want to go ahead and plug in our battery, and then we want to go ahead and click on read setup. So on my quadcopter, I'm actually using two different types of ESCs just because I didn't have a spare, but this one right here, the Airbot Ray 32 ST, you want to write down this right here, what the brand is, and the same thing with my other one, Gemfan Maverick. I actually already flashed the RPM filtering software on here, so what we want to go ahead and do is just write this down, and then just put on like a notepad or whatever. But later, maybe possibly even by the time that this video has been released, you might even be able to just flash this software from the configurator itself. And how you can check that is if you come to Flash BHeli right here, it'll show, see right here it says Rev 32.6. That is not the beta firmware. This is the this is not beta. So what you want to go ahead and do is exit this out. Now it's just, if it says 32.6.6, then you're golden and you can go ahead and flash it. So that means you don't have to worry about this next step that I'm going to go ahead and talk about. But if you do have, if it's not listed here, like I said, you're going to have to go do the steps that I'm talking about. So I'm going to click cancel here. So I just wanted to go ahead and make sure I have the right firmware. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect right now. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is come over to BHeli-32. Now remember, if this has already been released on the configurator, you don't have to go ahead and do this part. Click on the BHeli-32 test code, and then over here, Rev 32.6.6 for inverted bidirectional D-shot. That is the one you need for the Betaflight 4.1 RPM filtering. And then come over down here, just find what your ESC is. So in my case, I have the Gemfan Maverick and also the Airbot Wraith ESC. So I'm gonna click on this right here. I'm gonna click on raw, then I'm gonna click right here, click save as, and then I'm just gonna save this to my desktop and make sure that this bottom part says all files. And then sometimes on some computers it'll put a .txt at the end of this. Just delete that off and just make sure the last three says .hex, and then just click save. I already actually did this part on my computer, so I'm not going to go ahead and worry about that. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is exit this out. Actually, let's go ahead and back out of this here. And then I'm going to go ahead and go over to BHeli32. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is connect my flight controller once again. And then I'm going to go ahead and click my battery to my quad, so I can power up all the ESCs. And then we're going to click on read setup again. And then right here is where you want to go ahead and flash. So make sure that you do this one individual ESC at a time. So what you do is, for instance, I want to flash the first ESC. I'm going to go ahead and unclick those. So you see one, and then these have dots on it. Click flash BHeli. And then we're going to go ahead and ignore this. We don't want to flash that. We want to ignore this list and pick a file. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my desktop where I have it. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to click on yes, I want to flash the 3266 hex. And then I'm going to go ahead and flash the firmware on here. Should take just a few seconds. All right, it's finished. And click OK. And it says you want to write your current settings to ESC. So if you already had current settings like the motor direction reverse or whatever, you can click yes on this part. And then what you want to go ahead and do is go to the next ESC. So I have on 2, and then click flash BHeli, and then make sure that you ignore this list, pick a file. And then I have the GenFan Maverick ones right here. So just go desktop, whatever, and then click on that, and then flash that. And then pretty much you'll repeat that for each individual one. I already actually did all mine already. So what I'm going to do is we're done pretty much in this section here. If you want to, before you move on, you could go to the motors tab and just make sure that your motor direction is correct. It didn't mess anything up there. But once you check that out and that's everything is fine, you can go ahead and exit this out, disconnect your battery. You're pretty much done at this point with BHeli32 configurator. So now what I'm going to do is exit this out. Now we're going to go ahead and connect to Betaflight, and make sure that you are on the newest Betaflight configurator version, and you have to make sure as well that your flight controller has Betaflight 4.1 on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click over here to the configuration tab. You want to make sure on your motors that you are counting the magnets on the bell of the motor. So in my case, I'm using a 5-inch quad. I have 14 magnets on the bell of the motor, and that's pretty much what was the default, what it came at. Some smaller quads, like 3-inch quads, might have a lower magnet count or a higher magnet count. It depends on the motor, really. So just count that, then put that number in there. Then you can go ahead and you could click on this box right here, this slider right here, bidirectional D-shot. Click on that. Then you also want to make sure that you click on D-shot 300 right here, and make sure that that is pretty much, this is going to save you some CPU load, and also make sure as well that the gyro update frequency and PID loop is at 4K. So once you have that enabled and done, just click on save and reboot. And then what we're going to do is we want to connect again. Now we want to come over to the CLI tab. So what you want to go ahead and do is, I'll leave a link that's down below to this little snippet I have off of the Betaflight GitHub. Pretty much what we want to do, since we're having the RPM filter do all like the heavy work right now, we can go ahead and reduce some of the filtering. We're not going to reduce it entirely because we want to see how it flies first, and then we can start messing with the filtering a little bit more. It just depends how involved you want to get with it, is really what it comes down to, and how good does it fly or how bad does it fly. So first thing we have to go do is we have to set up the gyro sync and also the PID process denominator thing. So we're just going to click on that. So I'm typing in set gyro sync denom equals 2, and then set PID process denom equals 1. And then also, we're going to go ahead and do is, we already actually did this already, set motor RPM, set motor PWM protocol to DShot 300. We already did that. And then we also want to make sure we have set DShot bidirectionals on. We already did that as well. And then we also have, let me go ahead and bring over what I'm looking at here. So we also want to go ahead and make sure that we have set debug mode equals gyro scaled. Make sure that is in here. So we'll go ahead and paste that into the CLI. And then this right here is for the dynamic notch filter. We don't have to have it as wide and as scaled as much as it is default. So we're gonna go ahead and reduce that just a little bit, and we can always change that if we confirm we have cool motors, and we can tinker with that a little more. But like I said, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do a separate video on a flight, just flying this thing around, and then maybe some suggestions on what I did to help improve it. And maybe another flight. We'll go ahead and go over that in a future video down the line once I get time to go ahead and edit and make all those videos. So let's go ahead and we pasted that in there. Let's go ahead and click on save. Actually type save. So now we're in saved. Connect again. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is we have to make sure that it's actually working. That the multi-directional D-shot is actually working. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. See here, I'm going to copy this little snippet here. Come on, let me copy you. There we go, copied it. So now we're going to go over to CLI again, and we're going to go ahead and type in for Betaflight 4.1. It's actually different how to get the status. So we're going to type in DShot telemetry info, and you pretty much just see this, all zeros, because the motors aren't spinning or anything like that. That's completely normal. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and unplug my, let's go and disconnect this. I'm going to unplug my flight controller so it's not powered up. So removing the USB cable. First, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the battery so it's fully plugged in. Let that boot up. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug in the USB cable to the flight controller. And make sure your props are off. I should have said that in the beginning of the video, but make sure your props are off. Go ahead and connect. We're going to go ahead and go into the motors tab. We're going to click on this box, making sure that we have no props on it. And then we're going to go ahead and put this up a little bit. Just kind of have them almost idle, so they're spinning. Not sure if you can hear the motor spinning. And then we're going to go ahead and go over the CLI. And then we're going to go ahead and type in again DShot telemetry info. And as you see right here, it says the RPMs right here, as you see. And it shows 0% invalid, so this is perfect. So there's no, now if you show invalid percentage and it's higher than 1%, then you probably need to use either a different ESC or a different flight controller. Just unfortunately it won't work for you. But and the same thing here, DShot invalid packets, 0, so that's fine. Like I said, if it shows more than 1% here, then unfortunately you're gonna have to you can't use it, or just have to change out the ESCs, the motors. Something is going on where it's not functioning correctly. So since this is working correctly and everything is set up, we can just go ahead and disconnect. We can unplug our battery. All right, and that pretty much does it for the setting up the RPM filtering in Betaflight 4.1. There is actually some other things like you can change and you can tune according to how your quadcopter is reacting to the RPM filtering, and we'll go over that as well in a future video. But this is pretty much a initial setup guide for the RPM filtering to get you out in the air and playing with all the new features of Betaflight 4.1. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I do tons of reviews and tutorials on my channel, but I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.